Hiya, Murray from MBM. Plastic fantastic. In the last few years we've come across tons of plastic instruments, and they include Trombone, P-bone, Zo, Tiger, to name just a few. What's it about them? Let's have a look. Every one of the ones I have sitting in front of me is plastic. Great. What's the advantages of these plastic instruments? First of all, cost effectiveness. You know, if you want to buy a decent trombone, you got to spend $500–600 when you can buy one like this, plastic one, for around about $200. They're light. So for young beginners, this one here, this is about 500 grams. Trombone, about 800 grams. So for young beginners, they're great because particularly with the trombones and the larger brass, you can get UFOs and basses and tubas and things like that. With the younger players, it means that they're not struggling to carry that instrument. It means too that, like for the young trumpet players, you often see them playing right down here, which is bad for their posture, bad for their embouchure, and giving them bad habits from the word go. Having no weight means that they can hold them straight ahead. Okay, they can get that sound. They also are good for older people. Older people sometimes have struggles holding big instruments and carrying them. So having that other plastic option is a good option. The disadvantages. Generally, valves. The valves tend to stick, they tend to be a bit soft, and in this case the valve caps, rather than being a screw fitting, are a clip fitting which breaks, and then you've got all sorts of problems. So valves are not good. They tend to be a little bit soft, they tend to be a little bit draggy, which is hard when you're an advanced player trying to play fast. They don't quite sound right. They're always a little bit, you know, a bit like plasticky, if you know what I mean. We'll demonstrate that in a minute. They're also not good when they're dropped. Once they're broken, they're broken. And you can't really glue them back and get them together very successfully. So whereas with a brass instrument you can panel beat it, good repairers can do amazing stuff. Plastics, no, not going to work. So tend to just take it easy with them. They don't last, they wear out, the slides wear out, the slides, you know, become very difficult to use. Great way to start, but that's about it. They're a very basic entry option. So what do they sound like? Now let's use the trumpet to start with. This one. This is completely plastic. It's a tromba. It's a nice, quite a nice horn. I'm using the mouthpiece that came with it, and it sounds like this. Now one thing you do notice with these, the intonation is generally terrible. So tuning becomes a novelty. They look like a trumpet, they might sound like a trumpet, tuning them like a trumpet. You've got to be really, really on the game with it. But this is what it sounds, yeah, they sound alright. If I want to improve that sound, I'll put a metal mouthpiece in. Right? I use mine off my trumpet. Notice it sits a lot more snugly, so it's actually more in tune. So it is a much better sound just with the change of the mouthpiece, and by changing and using a metal mouthpiece you make it easier for the player to transition to a real instrument, if you can call it a real instrument, like a metal instrument, later on in life. And that's what we want. We want kids to play for the rest of their lives. I mean, Zo is one of the newer entries in the market, and definitely I'm pretty impressed with their gear. This is their Flugelhorn, as you can see. Now, using a metal mouthpiece, not a bad sound. The thing I find hard with this is the valves. It's a little bit cloggy, but better than I expected when I got it. The other two that I've got here that are worth looking at, this one's another trombone, but my first trombone that I bought was a P-bone. And they're cool, they're fun. Now this is great, if you've got a young one, the colours, which can be a disadvantage if you don't want colours, can be an advantage to getting young people to play these things. It's light, it's easy, it's carryable. I tend to use, what I tend to say is that get this for the first year, keep it at home, get a real one for school. Or vice versa, keep this one at school, keep the real one at home. It's great. Using the metal mouthpiece, it's little, or the Lexan mouthpiece, it's a little tiny bit dead in the bottom end. Slides alright, but you can see it's got no guts, no emphasis. If we use a metal mouthpiece again, it improves, but it's still very much a cheap Chinese, sort of cheap instrument sound. Better, but still pretty average. It's good in that it's lightweight and it's fun and the kids love it and it's okay. My last one that I have here is probably the most useless one in my collection. This one's called a jazz bone. It's made by Trombone. I got it as a bit of a joke, but it's a double slide. You can see there that the slide is twisted around twice. And it's the same pitch as a normal trombone, but what I thought with it was well, maybe this would be good for a student that hasn't got long arms. I was wrong. They're fairly useless because the slide positions don't correlate to anything. Intonation is absolutely horrendous, so you've got to rely very heavily on your ear to be able to pick that pitch and get it going to the correct pitch. You can do it, because being a trombone, it's infinite, but you've got to have that direct, you've got to have that ready to go. Sounds reasonably all right, okay? And as I said, it's a bit of fun. That works all right. What could possibly go wrong? So, plastic instruments, good for a reason, not a substitute for a real instrument, but a tool we can use. Catch you later.